All right, now it's time for the range DPS tier list 11.1, and it's ranked by most fun. Not by power or meta, it's by how fun it is.
Patch 11.1 might just be favoring range DPS more, so we've played all of them on the PTR to see which one ranks the highest in fun against everything else, considering the reworks up to this point, the tier sets up to this point, and the
Okay,
buff.
I'm playing Hunter. To preface this, I'm playing Hunter this patch. I played Warlock last patch because I played Hunter for so long, and I don't like BM. I don't think it's fun. I'm not bad at it, but it's just like it's not fun, so I don't think I'm as good as MM. I also think it's harder than Marksmanship, which might be a controversial take. I think it's harder. It's not a hard spec by any means, but it's just like it feels really clunky to play. It's just not for me. So I didn't want to play a class going into the War Within that I only like one spec. I wanted to play something else. So I was gonna play Mage, hated Arcane. Frost is just like carpal tunnel. Never tried Fire. So I was like, and then I leveled the Warlock, and I just fell in love. Warlock is so fun. I had a blast Warlock, but I did mess with my Hunter, and the reworked Marksmanship is just really intriguing to me. So I'm gonna come back, for the patch, and the tier set bonus is sweet. So I'm really looking forward to playing Hunter again after not playing it for a little
Dungeon
while.
tuning up to this point because some of these are spicy. How
Okay.
spicy? Affliction Warlock spicy. This is a personal bias of mine, so I will
Okay.
treat it as such because pretty much this entire video was going to be very personally biased. But
Yeah, that's the one thing you guys have to take into account. It's all biased. It's all subjective, right? And well, one thing he's talking about Affliction. I like Affliction in a rating. I don't like it in Mythic Plus because I think there's one of your abilities that like spreads your dots. If like the mobs aren't stacked really well, you just miss them, and that just feels awful because that's all your damage. And if you don't have cooldowns up, you do literally like no damage. But when your cooldowns are up, you blast. There's no like in between, I feel like.
I am actually a fan of what Affliction used to be, aka Seed of Corruption spam, which was a more exciting way to deal massive AoE. Outside of that, I do have to say a couple of caveats. The Affliction Warlock rotation, if everything goes right and you have every mob in your Vile Taint, because this is mostly
Yeah,
around Mythic Plus,
that's
but
what it's
of course
called,
they
Vile
apply
Taint.
to raids as well. But if you have everything in your Vile Taint properly and you set out a seed and everything has all the dots and then you can start actually doing your thing, it's super fun. However, that's not the case in a lot of the situations where the tanks cannot realistically pull everything in one tight little pack 100% of the time with every little
Hierarchies,
pack.
it's tough.
And there's bound to
You
be
gotta
one
move
or
too.
two mobs outside of your area of effect that will not be dotted. So you'll have to manually dot. And if the pack doesn't die before the agony essentially drops off,
Yep.
you won't have Vile Taint right away to replace it on the minions, on the pack. And even if you do, it's likely that the pack will just die in 5 or 7
I agree with
seconds
everything you're
longer.
saying here.
And the next
It's
pack
not
will see you
consistent.
with your pants down to your ankles because you have nothing to do to AoE dot them. This is of course a problem that affects not just Affliction Warlock, and we will get to that in the future, but it is one of the biggest complaints that I have in trying to play this and actually enjoy it in a Mythic Plus environment. Outside of that, it's pretty fun. The hero talents are
Oh wait,
still
this
doing a good
dungeon's gonna
job.
be so hard. I forgot the new dungeon set that one. This is the dungeon with the candle, right? Oh, this is gonna be such a disaster. It's gonna be so hard to run this key. I feel like this key is gonna be so unpopular, and everyone's just gonna like just never run it unless they need like a piece of loot from it, I guess. I
I've
don't
talked
know.
about this for 5-6 months already, so it's not anything surprising. I will put it into... I'll put it into meh.
Yeah.
It's fun, but the downside of maintaining the
It's just inconsistent. It's fun, but just
up on the
inconsistent.
targets and the lack of Seed of Corruption just makes it a little bit...
Plus, I think Warlock didn't get many changes, I don't think, this patch. A lot of specs had crazy changes, but Warlock didn't really receive any. I don't think they really needed any changes. I think all three specs are pretty viable in terms of their, like, strength. And I think they're all really fun in their own way. But I just think the nature of Mythic Plus makes Affliction not really as fun as the other specs in that role.
Augmentation is something that I have actually played in these
I've never played
PTRs, which is
Aug.
not something I usually do because I don't particularly like evoker and I am slightly coming around, and it does have a lot to do with skill commander. What
I
I've
was so
been
torn on AUG. I played support like in every other game. I love support. I played it in League, played it in Overwatch. I love playing support, but AUG, it just feels weird in MMO. And I feel like to get the power out of AUG, it just like you can't really quantitatively like measure your performance on AUG. You really can't. I feel like it's very hard to unless like you know how to read logs really well, I guess. I don't know. You just like you buff all these people up, and then if you buff them at the right times, you're doing really well. But if you mess that up, you're not doing well. And then like you don't really do much damage, you don't really do much healing. You're just kind of just like there, but you're also like really strong, especially in raid. So it's just like I don't know how you would measure your performance, and that's something that kind of concerns me. Cause like obviously with DPS it's easy, right? DPS like just do more damage. That's why I like playing damage. Because even healing is just like healing logs are really, you don't know the whole picture.
enjoyed on Augmentation the most, mostly because I really love steering my breath of eons, I think it's called. I keep wanting to call it deep breath, but it's not deep breath, it's breath of eons. Having to rotate prescience can get tedious after a while, so I'm not a big fan of that. And I can start to see some of the complaints that augmentations have when they're trying to maximize the Ebonite uptime on the party, but then again, that is what augmentation is supposed to do. So you kind of have to have
The
that
playstyle
expectation
doesn't really,
going into
I don't know, it
It's
just
not a
doesn't seem that
pure
fun for
DPS
me.
class per se, but it has been more fun than I expected it to be. You don't have the mass disintegrate that's so cool on Scale Commander, but with eruption is still pretty nice. So I will put it also a little bit behind Affliction, as opposed to the
Okay,
bottom
I
of
guess
the
that's
list
fair.
where
I've
it
never played it, so
normally
I can't really
does
say.
end up in, which is not where our patrons end up in, because they're
Oh,
at the top of the list, since they're actually supporting the content that you see right now, which is sometimes difficult to do on YouTube because YouTube doesn't really like all of the videos that we post out. And thanks to the support of our patrons, we can actually do them and do more
be a
and
veteran.
more in the future. And if you want to support your boys here to help us do more of the stuff, keep the lights on, all of the good stuff that you probably already know, head on to patreon.com/MarcellianOnline. Not only will you be supporting us, you will be able to have access to videos early ahead of time. You'll be able to see
watch these tier lists
bloopers
early.
of me and Marcellian fucking up on camera that you don't normally see because the edits are crisp. And you might also
edits,
be
what? What's that?
the recipient of a 4K resolution,
Oh my
glorious
God.
wallpaper of awesomeness with your character's transmog on it.
That's pretty cool.
Once again, patreon.com/MarcellianOnline. Thank you very much for support, and let's talk next about Balance Druid, because
Oh, I played Balance Druid not last. What was the end of last expansion? Dragon Tales. Yeah. I didn't really rate that much. I didn't play it that much. It was fun. I like Boomkin a lot. I don't know what they changed for the War Within, but it was really fun. Starfall's OP, man. It feels so good to press. That one fight, what was it? The council fight? If you were like in the right spec, you just like had dots and everything. You Starfall. It was crazy. You just like deal like 10% more damage than every other spec in the game.
oh, the order.
Boomkin's always been really strong at that.
Balance Druid is kind of slightly, I don't want to say opposite, but despite the things that it has lost, it's still relatively fun. And I
did
think
not
that
like
just
I
has
did
to-
not like Balance Sheet at all though in Mythic Plus. I did not like it at all. It's kind of the same thing with Warlock. Like if it's like getting your dots and everything, and then if like the tank moves, you spread your other dots, and then like
do
not
with the
nah.
baseline
Mythic Plus wasn't enjoyable
of
for me.
balance just being really enjoyable, where
I don't think
it's
I like any
simple
dot
and
spec
satisfying.
in
Spread
N+.
your dots in AoE. It's still tedious, just like it is with Affliction,
Yeah.
maybe even more tedious because you don't have an AoE application of your dots. That sucks. That shouldn't be the case. At least maybe if we can get orbital strike, whatever the celestial alignment change to the big beam in front of you that normally puts the
Is this a new
flare, if we
dungeon?
can
I
have
haven't
that
done
with
this
all the other
dungeon.
dots, that can make it a little bit less tedious, especially when you do
It's the
big
raid
pulls.
boss. No, this is
Then you
Mythic
want to
Plus.
just
Huh.
pump really quick, because having to tap target 7 times to put Moonfire out is so boring. And if I wanted to do that, I would just play Classic at the moment. Outside of that, building Astral Power, spending Astral Power is very satisfying. The fact that Starfall is not reliant on you putting something on the ground and things staying in that ground is very relaxing and very liberating, let's say. The fact that you're squishy is not, and having to go into bear sucks. I guess that's what the vision of the druid specs is supposed to be, and that's where the main defensive will lie, because you cannot really do anything in bear. You can say the same about turtle for hunters. However, hunters have way better defensives outside of turtle.
Wait, is it saying hunters are more tanky than balanced druids? Hunters rejoice. You know how long hunters were so trash in Mythic rating? You know how hard it was to stay alive in Mythic Sledgefist? Or not Mythic Sledgefist, the Shadowlands boss. I think it was Sledgefist, yeah. The guy with the gravestone on his back. That was when boomkins were broken. That whole Shadowlands expansion. Boomkins were just so crazy defensively and damage-wise. And hunters, I remember hunters and Sanctions of Domination. We had the worst DPS single target and the worst survivability by far. They buffed us up so much, like incrementally over the past, like I feel like year and a half to now, where we have way more defenses. We have like an extra charge on a few defensives. Acceleration got buffed in the skill tree, and it feels way better. But it's just crazy how like the tides have turned. Like now balanced druid is really squishy, I guess. I don't know. I haven't played it in a while, like I said, but that's just so funny.
Granted, bear does not have a cooldown, but
I guess
then
it's
again,
just video game balance.
Doing any damage.
That's just how it is, right? Everything's gonna be broken at one point.
We'll need a little
over a
bit
20-year
more to
game.
kind of keep up with what range specs do nowadays in terms of fun. I think taking away Arcanic Pulsar sucked, and it sucked mostly because we didn't really get anything back. Mushrooms are boring to play, and
I never liked the
more in the
mushrooms
future.
back.
I will put it in front of me. I kind of wanted to put it in decently fun, but I feel like it would do it.
I agree with that too. I think that's accurate, because Affliction is like the same thing. I like Affliction and Raid. I don't like Mythic Plus, just because the same issue. It's just the dots.
This service
feels so bad.
Specs that will eventually end up decently fun, that are actually decently designed.
All right, so all three
One
and
such
meh.
spec being Arcane Mage.
Okay, Arcane Mage. I'm gonna rate Arcane Mage. I don't think it's. I think it's me. I don't think it's like anything wrong with it. I played it at the start of the expansion, and it's pretty complicated, and it kind of feels bad, because like you're supposed to like when you have arcane missiles out, if you don't have a certain proc available that buffs arcane missiles, you're supposed to cut off the channel, right? So you're supposed to cast arcane missiles and then cut it off to just keep on spamming arcane blast, and that type of like class design or spec design just feels kind of bad. And they kind of do it on purpose. I think they were going to change it or something, but they didn't. And I don't know. For me, it just feels like it just feels clunky, and it's just very bursty. It's very, very bursty. You do so much damage at the start, and then you don't do like any damage. And then, yeah, it's just not the spec for me. I don't like Arcane at all. For me, in terms of fun, is probably like in no way, to be honest.
And this is a little bit of a
but I know a lot of people like it, so he's putting it
because
in decently
I like
fun.
pain, and I like it to be inflicted upon me when I play World of Warcraft. I'm excited about the future of Arcane Mage, mostly because
you evocate, you Arcane Surge, you pop your other cooldown, I forget what it's called. Then you do your Arcane Orb, I think, and then you just blast.
Things are happening again to its talents. As
Although,
of recording this video,
the
I'm not
defensives
exactly
for Mage
sure
are really fun.
what the best way to play Arcane is, so I don't know the builds and all of the rotations. We lost Ether Vision as Arcane, and that kind of sucked because I like the gameplay implication of it, and I feel like in the process of simplifying Arcane for a lot of more players, the devs actually are complicating it even more.
Yeah,
and every time
I agree. I think like that's the problem I had last expansion, right? It was so complicated, and now I think it's like it's so complicated, and it just feels like.
Doing one of
really
these
bad.
changes, they're complicating it even more, only to go back on these changes. And I think there hasn't been a single spec in the game that's been yo-yoed more left and right than Arcane has. Do we double dip? Do we not double dip? Burden and power affects barrage. It doesn't affect barrage.
Yeah,
do we double dip into
they don't know what to do with it.
Nope, we take a barrage away. No, we put it back. So I don't know what the fuck. But
they don't know what to do with it
at
all.
Fun. And plus a couple of changes have been made into the talent tree. I don't know if it's final because it's never final with Arcane.
Dude,
But
I'm
if
so
they
excited for Theater of Pain. I love this dungeon. I can't wait to do that Mythic
can
Plus.
actually decide what the vision of Arcane is, it can be really interesting if you can actually play something like Arcane Explosion, which is like a dead spell on your bars. Not very fun to press anyway, so maybe we can make that fun. Maybe we can give Arcane Mana Sphere from Plunderstorm, just like how Windwalker received Slicing Winds from Plunderstorm. Wouldn't that be cool? That would be very cool. I'm just saying it would be cool. Plus, it gives you a little bit more utility.
I don't know what this are. I never played Thunderstorm.
But it is really fun. The flow of Sun Fury is really cool. What they did to Arcane Soul in terms of Sun Fury is very cool. It's also a little bit bugged, so if you're watching the footage that we have on the PTR, it's likely, and if the damage is very low, it's likely one of the bugs with one of the talents that's not doing proper damage. Don't look at that. It's not going to be.
Dude, the amount of bugs this expansion has been crazy. Like, how are there... Is this... I mean, it's on PTR, maybe that's why, but like... I remember I was doing a Mythic Plus dungeon on my alt, and I was really low eye level, and this rogue was like the same eye level as me, and I'm crazy with Mythic Plus. I will check your logs, even in like a +2, because the amount of players that are just... You know why I do this. If you play the game regularly, you know how painful keys are. I check everybody, and this guy had like no gear, but he had 100% parses on all of the and like LFR, and it was doing crazy damage. Like, okay, I'm fighting this guy, and that was like the first day that the what was it? What spec was it? The one of the rogue specs had like, this bug where he had like infinite combo points, and it was just like ended up being crazy.
Up until
and that's
but it is fun, and
so many stories like that. This expansion,
more than the other ones.
So many bugs.
Beast Mastery. Once again, depending on when you watch this video, you might be aware that Beast Mastery is broken on the PTR, and it's likely not gonna stay that way. I'm just saying. Although it has a better chance of staying that way than most other specs.
I don't like BM. I don't like BM. I don't know. Like I said earlier, just feels clunky.
Beast Mastery is the most popular range DPS spec in the game, and the second most popular spec in the game, period, behind Red Paladin. So Blizzard will probably be more reluctant to nerf a spec that a big chunk of the community.
Although I think they're making a lot of changes at this patch that might make it a little bit more fun.
Playing. Outside of that, I don't know, bro. Pack Leader is so tedious and passive. It's better designed in the sense that it's an actual playable hero talent right now, and it does good things. But I just cannot tell. I don't know.
I haven't played this expansion at all, but I feel like it hasn't got many changes.
I don't know if it's gonna be live by the time you watch this, but it's just very tedious. It's doing a lot of damage. It lacks a bit of depth, but that's been Beast Mastery's thing for a very long time. I'm still not a fan of the fact that I have to spend, 3 talents to get my AoE, because you're never going to get multi-shot on its own. You're never going to get multi-shot and Beast Cleave on its own.
I hate the AoE rotation.
You have to get multi-shot, Beast Cleave, and Kill Cleave on its own.
I don't know. It's so
Dire
clunky.
Cleave, a new talent for your Dire Beast to do AoE that you're probably going to end up picking. I would be surprised if not. That would be interesting to see. But overall, it's still the same. I still feel like Dark Ranger might be the more interesting way of playing BM, and that's not saying very much.
Okay.
I will put it... Dude, I'm gonna put it behind Augmentation, man. I cannot believe it. I've had more fun on Augmentation than on BM, and I'm a Hunter player way before I'm a Lizard player, so I don't know.
Lizard player, yeah, I think it needs help. It needs something new. But I feel like they don't want to take the risk, right? If he's saying that, it's the second most popular spec, why would they change it,
Demonology has changed a lot more since I last played it, and giving it a shot was one of the better things that I've done on the PTR. I've actually quite enjoyed it a little bit. I still feel like it's missing some potential depth and class identity.
I think Demonology is sick. I like it way more in Raid than Mythic Plus. My favorite Warlock spec in Mythic Plus is Destruction. By far, Destruction in Mythic Plus is so fun. But there's something with Demonology when you get your pets up.
I feel like it's risky
going
someone
into the
passive route where you're
you have an army out, it's
no
just
matter
so
what talents you
satisfying.
pick, and the talents do really cool stuff, but they don't impact your rotation whatsoever.
But the AoE is just kind of weird. Just like press
they just
Doom every now and then.
That's
it.
The same situation
and everything else
with
is
Beast
passive.
Mastery as well.
It just kind of feels bad.
I kind of would like to see Doomguard do its
Shadow small things you could do
thing from the tier set that we had in Dragonflight.
But
that
I feel
was
like
one of the cooler things.
the rotation,
It's
very simple.
I
Isn't
want it
bad.
to be a little bit cooler.
I think this is a great spec for new players.
It's dope that you can see it there. That's a point in its favor as opposed to Beast Mastery, but I feel like it's all just way too passive. I will put it in front of
I understand. It is very
Augmentation,
passive.
a little bit behind Affliction because I felt like Affliction had more oh shit moments than Demonology had.
For me, I would put Demonology decently fun, and I would leave Affliction where it is. I really like Demonology, but for Mythic Plus, I still think it's decently fun. I'd put Demonology decently
So
fun.
I'm not sure if that's ever going to change. Destrolock is just the pure example of, hey man, I just wanna do some damage, man.
Yeah, Destruction is so fun. That one talent point you get that splits your Chaos Bolts, and then in Mythic Plus, in that Mythic Plus spec, it's like a passive, so it's just like this buff you get every once in a while. And then if you have like 5 Soul Shards, you can just like cast like 3 Chaos Bolts that just are split. So you just do like, and they're like they can craft like plus 4 million plus each. So you're doing like crazy damage on this spec. It's so fun.
And I don't know if I should put it in front or behind Arcane. I'm still debating.
It's for me. It's up here. It's the most fun. It's the Chaos Bolts chunk. They feel really good. The animation behind each of it. The troll like has all this crazy like summons from the ground, and it's just this huge projectile that just crits like crazy.
It's not
such a
as
fun
broken
spec.
as Arcane, and it's not as complex as Arcane, but it is just the simple fun of destruction where you're just building soul shards and just spamming Rain of Fire. It's not superly changed. The tier set is pretty gnarly, but
Rain of
it
Fire
doesn't
looks
really
cool.
impact your
Cataclysm's
build
sick.
and or rotation. You might want to get the Channel Demon Fire talent that buffs it so that when your Channel Demon Fire bolts shoot out, you, I think, refresh, immolate. But outside of that, I don't think much will change. It's the simple fun. If you're gonna do a spec simple, just do Destro, and that's fine.
I think this.
Fire,
I think Destro is a little harder to play, honestly, than Demonology. So I disagree with that. I think Demonology is very simple. You just kind of. I think the opener for Demonology might be a little bit more complicated. But like just playing the spec, I think Demonology is easier. Whereas Destruction the opener is very easy.
Mage is
I don't know.
something that I am very probably the most conflicted on this entire. No, it's definitely the most conflicted on this entire.
I never
tree.
tried Fire.
Because
kinda wish
I
I
don't
did.
like the vision of Fire Mage. Currently on the PTR, I'm not sure if this will change by the time it goes live, but on the PTR right now, you have 1 fewer Phoenix Flame charge, and Fire Blast has a longer cooldown because, and I quote, the devs don't like its mobility and that it's so high. I would argue that that's one of the main selling points of Fire, being so explosive and having such high mobility. And with these particular traits of Fire that definitely make it fun, people, at least the ones that I've talked to, definitely found it very fun because of how fast and mobile and how many instant casts it has.
Like fireballs.
It still didn't make it overpowered or an overwhelming
It's like
choice.
he has like star power in Mario Kart or something. It's just crazy. I was gonna play Fire, but I never got around to it. I was just sick of Mage. Plus, it seemed I think Fire Mage is one of the hardest range specs in the game. And that's
To be
saying a lot.
picked in groups
If Arcane
to
is hard,
argue
but
that
I'm not sure if that's
its
true.
design on mobility
I think
would
that's a little
impact the
subjective as well,
overall
to be honest.
community.
Difficulty.
It does fucking not. Fire Mage has been more or less average this entire season 1 that is, and it's never been picked because of its mobility. If anybody...
Well, I think Fire Mage always pops off at the end of expansion, right? Doesn't Fire Mage need like gear? You need a lot of crit, I guess, or something. Kind of like classic WoW warrior. You just need like to scale.
picks Fire Mage over any other specs, it would probably be because its damage profile is very efficient. It can have some really good single target that splashes into AoE without almost sacrificing any single target damage whatsoever. And historically, that's one of the main selling points that Fire has been taken into groups. Definitely not because of mobility, but hampering mobility makes Fire feel like you're running on a smooth surface and somebody's throwing rocks in your way and you're constantly tripping or hitting your foot on a rock.
Damn.
It feels terrible. It feels clunky. It feels unintuitive, and the change to Frostfire makes it a little bit tedious to juggle
glad,
all
I
the
guess I didn't
procs where
play
you're
Fire
going
Mage.
to cap procs inefficiently, and it for a Fire Mage main player where I really want to play as optimally as possible because that matters on Fire maybe more than any other spec in a game,
Yeah, fire mage is
it
hard.
feels terrible to play. I feel like this needs help. I wanted to put it at the very bottom of the tier list. It's not bad. It's still
Okay.
fire. It's still pretty cool. But I
It
don't
looks
like the vision of
fun.
fire. And if people like it, that's perfectly fine. Listen, you enjoy your fire if you want to. I cannot. It's terrible, and it's been a spec that I've been in love with for the past 5 months, and this just got gutted in like 1 week. So
Was it good at the end of this
enjoy
patch? I haven't played this patch in months. I don't know. Was it any good? I've never
your
seen.
fire.
I
That's
still have
not
one
my
fire mage
fire.
the whole expansion.
Frost Mage has received some cool changes on the PTR
I
where
tried Frost. It's just like I don't even know if I was playing it right. I tried it for like one dungeon. I looked at the rotation guide. It's actually pretty in depth, at least for a new time playing it, and it was just like I felt like I was just mashing my face on my keyboard and I was popping off.
where Blizzard is now bigger and better, and the fact that I do have to say that it's a minor thing, but Blizzard actually being a larger area of
I do
effect
not
spell,
like this
if
spec.
that's the right
I
way to
don't
say
like,
it,
it's just
actually
it's
impacts
too
the visual
spammy.
quality a lot, and of course your AoE performance, since we know that tanks usually move packs around in dungeons. In raids it doesn't really matter that much most of the time. So
I just don't think mage
having
is for
a
me, to be
wider
honest.
area of effect on Blizzard is really cool. And if they keep pushing this Blizzard to be a really, really good spell to use for damage and not just synergy and procs and stuff like that, I am super down for it. Outside of that, not really much changed for Frost at all, which is a little bit of a bummer because Frost really needs to be modernized. It still feels like I'm playing a 2016 spec. Cold Snap is about the coolest thing you can do with Frost, and that's only in AoE. And the
Yeah, the animations and like the oomph behind it, like Arcane, I don't like, but it like I don't like the rotation, but the orbs were really cool. The purple, the colors, all the animations were really satisfying. And I think Fire looks like that too. I think Frost looks the weakest in terms of that in that department for Mage.
the dopamine gameplay loop only happens on, I don't know, 8 targets or more, where you constantly get frozen orb resets and blizzard resets, and that's mainly the main appeal of Frost that I would have. Definitely not in a single target. A glacial spike was fun once upon a time, but it's still the same thing, and
I never played Fire. I'd put Frost that needs help. I think it needs
more
some work.
boring the more I play it. I will put it
I agree with everything he's saying
in
here.
front
It
of
just doesn't
Demonology.
feel like
I
a
think
modern
I've been
spec.
enjoying Frost a little bit more than Demonology,
They
but
need,
it
like,
needs help.
trim the fat and make it
Maybe I
like
should have put it
update
next
the
to Fire.
animations. That's it.
It's doing better than Fire.
What?
Marksmanship.
He'd put it above Demonology? I mean, I'd put it on par with Beast Mastery, personally.
Oh my god, I have never thought I would ever put Marksmanship at the top of the list.
What?
I do have to say
Oh,
that
I'm
its
excited.
rework has
What's he
been
saying?
probably the best rework that any spec has gotten in a very long time. I used to think that was
Okay.
basically Fire's place, but with the recent changes to Fire, Marksmanship just overtook in terms of design, like Lee's above. The way that they've taken some very basic concepts of marksmanship, like precise shots, streamline, and I guess the new Spotter's Mark, the new owl thingy, and just baked them into 4 or 5 other synergies, talents, and spells, and kind of made it all like this proc.
This is my main this patch. I'm playing Marks Hunter.
This triggers that one. That
I don't care if Beastmaster and Survival is the meta. I'm one-tricking Marksmanship.
triggers the on and then comes back around and it triggers the
But I'll
first
come up with
one.
guys for Beastmaster
That is
and
so
maybe Survival.
fucking cool. And the fact that, at least on the PTR with my dumbass brain, that I could see, oh, I could actually just build it in multiple ways and have different types of damage profiles in AoE and in single target is really cool. The fact that you have 2 target cleave after so many years is really cool.
I mean,
and
you had some
definitely
target cleave already with volley, you know, but that was it. And if you messed up your volley window, you had like none.
dig the version of marksmanship that the devs are seeing right now. I can only hope that it can be used as an example to design stuff like Frost Mage maybe, or even Beast Mage.
I'm excited. I'm so excited
a
for this
lot more
patch now.
interesting. Marksmanship.
I just had to gear my hunter. My gear is awful. I've been running raids with the stream, just doing like normals. So if you want to ever like everyone wants to just come in and do normal, even heroic, I'll probably do heroic next week. Yeah, tune in the stream. I'm just running raids. I'm just trying to gear up.
Creme de la creme, or whatever they say. Devastation was also a decently big surprise for me in terms of how fun it was on the PTR. I'm hesitant to put it into decently fun or meh. I'm not yet sure.
I wish Blizzard, like, I don't know, when did Panaland come out? Like, 2014-ish maybe? I'm not sure. But I feel like they kind of took a direction in that time period with their art style where they wanted to make it really cartoony. And that we saw with Pandaland, and I felt like they should have just learned from their mistake there. But they decided to go dragons, which is like not bad. Dragons are cool, and I feel like that's their roots. So many dragons in like WoW lore. But just the art style of the dragon, and like I was like, oh my god, what the heck
I'm
were
gonna
you guys
talk
thinking?
myself into putting into one of those tiers
They didn't
right
do any
about now.
QA
I wanted to
testing
play Flameshipper a
with
lot on
like
the
a room of
PTR,
like new
but no matter how
players.
I looked, I wasn't convinced that
How does this look?
Firestorm is a good talent to pick. It's very unpopular, and the fact that it's still not used in the
I don't know.
highest
I've
of
never played
keys
an
and highest
evoker.
of content where the
You'll
Devastation
never see me on a
is a
lizard
big
boy.
minus in terms of this. This spec is a new spec. It barely has any buttons. The one button that can do more AoE damage that you could take is not tuned.
This doesn't look that
It's
fun
been
at all.
overpowered. It
I don't
was
care how it
overpowered
looks. I
on
really
the beta
don't.
for
It's just like doesn't
Dragonflight,
look fun.
and they nerfed it into the ground, and that was what, almost 2 years ago, and they haven't buffed it properly since, enough to be played in AoE, where you would think this is what you would be doing in AoE. And I
it's
do
not
have to say
bad.
that there's a big gameplay loop missing from Devastation that people could be enjoying with, I forgot which one. Pyre resets Firestorm, makes it instant, and you can place it. Probably does even more damage. The gameplay revolving around Pyre, that's really cool, and I was hoping to see more of it. And you can play it, of course, but the fact that it's very underwhelming doesn't really do much for it. But that out of the way, Skill Commander, like Augmentation, was really fun for me. I really enjoyed my little gecko, as much as I don't really vibe with the Drakthir thing. And
Geico class.
Deep Breath being fucking available so often has to be the coolest thing that I can do on Devastation. And I don't know if I could play Devastation without Deep Breath. If you're gonna take, I don't know, 20-30 second Deep Breath cooldown for me away, you better give me Firestorm, and that's not what's happening right now, which is why I will be putting it in meh. Behind Affliction,
Okay.
above a lot of the
I don't know.
specs,
I've never played this, so I can't really
never
input on that.
guess that I would put it in front of.
I trust him though.
Elemental is a tricky one. I would put it super high up in terms of its playstyles. There are pluses and minuses. I feel like
Dude, Shaman is eating the past few years.
Marksmanship is probably a little bit better overall, but Elemental with the changes to... actually, I'm not sold yet on Primordial Wave. I feel like it works okay for enhancement, but
I kind of wish I played a Shaman. Every time I tried though, like I never played it retail, but like in Classic and in Burning Crusade, I boosted a Shaman when they came out with like the Burning Portal Pass, whatever, you know, boosts, and then I just like the totem management was just not for me, so I kind of disregarded it. But I think I could get used to it.
I'm still not sold on how it should be for Elemental. I feel like the devs don't really
Shamans this looks so
either.
fun. I agree.
Or I'm just a dumbass.
I don't care about
and that's
damage. It looks
perfectly fine.
so
You don't need to
fun.
listen to that.
The
Because you
chain
can
lightning.
play without that. And
They got a lot of new. I have another video. They have a lot of new spell effects. I don't think Elemental did as much.
actually have a
They
lot
actually
of fun.
they did.
And it
They
is
did update the regular lightning bolt, and it looks way worse. It looks like a water bolt mixed with like smoke, whereas like it doesn't look like this. It doesn't look like your typical lightning attack. It just doesn't look that good personally. All the other shaman changes are either like whatever, like the ghost wolf one is just like the transparency is like a little lower. But the other is either like whatever or like the enhancement buffs. The enhancement like lightning crash, that one looks really cool.
really cool. I feel like Elemental is still being tested, and it might just get better and better as the expansion rolls out. It's already really fun. It obviously does a lot of damage,
Okay.
which definitely helps. It's not
We're
all
on that
about
same
damage, but
wavelength
sometimes
right
damage
now.
matters. And sometimes it doesn't, because we're getting...
Alright, I'm gonna guess, just to guess, just predict it for funsies. Shadow Priest, I never see Shadow Priest, and they were so popular in Dragonflight. I'm gonna guess Shadow Priest is and needs help or meh.
Shadow Priest. And Shadow Priest has quite a bit of damage. It's been kind of buggy on the PTR when we've tested it, so not everything was working, so you cannot really see
I think it looks fun.
the potential of Shadow Priest. But I do have to say that the more I've played all of the range DPS specs, particularly Affliction and Balanced Druid and other dot style specs...
Oh, it's a dot spec. Oh. I don't know how it works. I've never played Shadow Priest, so I don't know Mythic Plus, but dot specs and M Plus are no
less
fun.
I like Shadow Priest. Shadow Crash is maybe a better version of Vile Taint, but at the same time a worse version than Vile Taint, because You can, at least with Warlock, use 1 seed of corruption to put corruption on everything if you don't have Vitality up, but there's no such thing for Shadow Priest if you don't have Shadow Crash up. At least the dots expire just after your Shadow Crash comes off cooldown, so you can kind of
It's
chain
so purple.
cast it to maintain uptime if the pack lasts long enough, or if, you know, I guess in single target this is not a problem anymore. But the same argument with Valtane applies, where you don't know if you really want to use Shadow Crash at the end of a fight with the pack, because if the pack has like 10% less HP and no dots up, you do no damage, and if you use Shadow Crash, you will end up doing damage for like 5 more seconds, and then in the next pack you will do no damage once again. So that just fucking sucks. Not to mention
I think that's the problem with the Affliction Warlock. You don't have like your cooldowns up.
The more I play Shadow past its initial version in Dragonflight, the more I realize that Mindsphere being taken out has been terrible for it.
It's a bummer, because like, look at like, that looks so cool, the halo, the dark halo, and like you get these wings and you're just purple, like dark purple energy orbs and stuff. It looks so cool, like visuality and thematically, and like, I really like the aesthetic of it, but it's just, if the rotation isn't fun, that's
super boring. It's the same rotation everywhere. I am bored
PI
out of my fucking skull trying to play this. The only saving grace that Shadow has is Void Weaver. Told you about the bloopers at the Patreon thing. And Void Blast and its interaction with the rotation, and the fact that you can cast Void Turn while moving. That's really cool. Right now, you're kind of only playing it with Dark Ascension.
I'm playing a priest in classic WoW, and watching this is such a different, like, such a different gameplay, dude. Like, imagine if they brought back wands. So, like, instead of, like, that'd be pretty cool. Right? It's like you do, like, your cooldowns, like, every now and then you gotta use, like, your auto attack, and you just, like, bring out a wand.
Would be curious to see how the rotation would be if you end up playing it with Void Eruption, having Void Blast and Void Bolt at the same time. But I still don't like Mind Spike, and I'm glad that you're playing Mind Flay Insanity. It feels like it's just a mess. So that's where Shadow will end up being on the tier list. Needs help, probably a little bit ahead of Fire.
All right, so Marksman and Elemental, top 2. Huge, guys. Hunters rejoice. Marksman is fun again. Or we got updated. We got some attention. Now I should do that with Marksmanship, or with Beast Mastery, and then they need to go to Survival. Go back to when they made it a meme melee spec, and just completely 180 that, and redesign it. And we're gaming.
And if we're honest, probably a lot more specs would need help realistically to kind of, you know, I guess balance. Probably pretty much everything in mech category could need a little bit more help too.
So I think out of all of this, if I wasn't playing Hunter, I'd probably just stay with Warlock, because Warlock, I think Demonology, I think Destruction belongs up here personally. I think it's so fun, and then Demonology is indecently fun, and then Affliction is, I agree, Affliction is in meh. So for me, it's just Hunter or Warlock. I don't buy with Mage. I don't want to play Lizard. Those don't look fun at all. Priests, thematically and aesthetically, it looks really cool, but if the rotation is just like the Affliction and Balance Shield Warlock, where if you don't have your dots up, if you don't have your cooldowns up, it just feels bad. Yeah, so I think that's the issue with Mythic Plus and deep, like, dot specs. They just feel awful. They really do, especially low keys, right? If you're doing like alt runs or something, if you're doing anything under a 10, and you're playing with like a Marks Hunter or like a Demon Hunter, everything dies so fast, and you're just there to just like support your team, I feel like.
Be great, but I see people enjoy them, so that's fine. I'm not going to be too harsh on them. But you can also see the melee situation in 11.1, which was a fun, of course, judged by...
Well, let me know in the comments below what you guys think. This was a really good video. I honestly, these videos are really good because he plays everything. So it takes a lot of work to go into every single spec. And he knows what he's talking about, too, in each spec. Like, everything he's talking about with the druid and the warlock and hunter is very true. So... he has a lot of knowledge of the game. Definitely a good video. Let me know what you're gonna play. I'm definitely playing Hunter.